Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 17, entitled Mother Parvati curses Chitraketu, text 38, is it? Jagye Twastur Dakshinagno Jagye Twastur Dakshinagno Jagye Twastur Dakshinagno Danavim Yonim Ashrita Danavim Yonim Ashrita Vritra Iti Abhiv, Abhivikyato Vritya Iti Abhivikyato Jnana Vijnana Samyuta Jnana Vijnana Samyuta Jagye Tvastu Dakshinagno Danavim Yonim Ashrita Vritra Ityabhivikyato Jnana Vijnana Samyuta Jagye Tvastu Dakshinagno Danavim Yonim Ashrita Vritya Ityabhivikyato Jnana Vijnana Samyuta Jagye Tvastu Dakshinagno Danavim Yonim Ashrita Vritra Ityabhivikyato Jnana Vijnana Samyuta. Please chant. Yagye Tvastu Dakshinagno Danavim Yonim Ashrita Vritra ladies. Okay. Jagye was born Twastu of the Brahmin known as Twasta. Dakshina Agno in the fire sacrifice known as Dakshinagni. Anapim, demoniac. Unim, species of life. Ashrita, taking shelter of. Vritra, Vritra. Iti, thus. Abhivikyata, celebrated. Jnana Vijnana, Samyuta, fully equipped with transcendental knowledge and practical application of that knowledge in life. Translation: being cursed by Mother Durga, Bhavani, the wife of Lord Shiva, that same Chitraketu accepted birth in a demoniac species of life. Although still Fully equipped with transcendental knowledge and practical application of that knowledge in life, he appeared as the demon at the fire sacrifice performed by Twasta, and thus he became famous as Vritrasura. Please repeat. Being cursed by Mother Durga, Bhavani, the wife of Lord Shiva, that same Chitraketu accepted birth in a demoniac species of life. Although still fully equipped with transcendental knowledge and practical application of that knowledge in life, he appeared as a demon at the fire sacrifice performed by Twasta. And thus he became famous as Vritrasura. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The word yoni is generally understood to mean jati, family, group, or species. Although Vritrasura appeared in a family of demons, it is clearly said that his knowledge of spiritual life still existed. Jnana Vijnana Samyuta. His spiritual knowledge and the practical application of that knowledge in life were not lost. Therefore, it is said that even if a devotee falls down for some reason, he still is not lost. He is still not lost. Yatra kva vabhadram abud amusha kim ko varta apto bhajatam sadharmata. Bhagavatam 1.5.17. Once one is advanced in devotional service, his spiritual assets are never lost under any circumstances. Whatever spiritual advancement he has achieved continues. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Even if a Bhakti yogi falls, he takes birth in a rich family or family of Brahmins, in which he again starts devotional service from the point where he left off. Although Vritrasura was known as Asura or demon, he did not lose his consciousness of Krishna or devotional service. Om Gyanatamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshunlitam Yana Tasman Shri Gurave Namaha Kam Kroti Vachalam Pangam Lagate Garam Yat Kripatamam Vande Shri Gurum Dinitarnam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Being cursed by Mother Durga, Bhavani, the wife of Lord Shiva, that same Chitraketu accepted birth in a demoniac species of life. Although still fully equipped with transcendental knowledge and practical application of that knowledge in life, he appeared as a demon at the fire sacrifice performed by Twasta, and thus he became famous as Vritrasura. Interesting here that Jnana and Vijnana is both mentioned. So Sam means complete, just like we have this word Samkirtan or Sankirtan. It means complete glorification of the Lord. So this, he didn't lose that connection with the knowledge he'd gained and the advancement he made in his previous life. And Prabhupada quotes that verse from the Bhagavad Gita, or he mentions that verse. Suchinam Srimatam Gehi Yoga Brasto Bijayate. So Arjuna asks this question of Krishna, that if I engage in this, or attempt to engage in this path of devotional service back to yoga, but then I'm not successful, I've given up my material life, and then I have nothing material and have nothing spiritual if I don't succeed in this. So, and his description is like, I'll perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere. So sometimes we might consider that if I give everything to Krishna and it doesn't work out for me, then I've got nothing to fall back on. And some devotees, they put themselves in that position. They don't want to have something to fall back on because they know that if they have a material safety net, then they might take it. So, of course, that's putting ourselves in a very tentative position that we give ourselves no choice. And there's various steps along the way where we make more and more commitment, like living in the temple itself is a commitment. It's not that we just move into the same uh, geographical location as other people who are practicing Krishna consciousness, and it's just going to, by osmosis, we're just going to become Krishna conscious. We have to actually follow the rules of the ashram because people generally don't like rules and regulations these days. But if we understand that without discipline, we're not going to achieve anything, it's very important these days to understand that. People think that just by following the mind, we're going to be happy, but that's not going to lead to happiness. That's going to lead to disaster. And that's explained in Bhagavad Gita, where the senses are like 5 horses. And you see that there's a painting there of each horse represents each one of the senses, the sense of hearing, taste, smelling, touching, and seeing. And if we allow those senses just to go wherever they like, it means the mind is out of control, and then our mind is our enemy. Just as if you just told the driver, okay, let go of the reins is intelligence. If we just say, okay, let go of the reins and let the horses go wherever they like, why are you holding them back? This is unfair. Let them be free. And so, and that might be okay if the horses are going in the same destination at the same speed as you want to, but there's very, very little chance because they're all independent. They want to go here, there, and everywhere, pushing in different directions. It's just 100% going to come as a disaster. And the soul is seated on that chariot, having to witness that. So the driver of the chariot is considered the soul or the intelligence. I think it's the soul, isn't it? And then the reins are the intelligence. So if we let go of the reins, we're letting go of the intelligence. I suppose you could utilize that analogy in either way. But the main thing is to because we're accustomed to letting the senses roam, then if someone says, okay, if you want to make spiritual advancement, you got to curb your senses, you got to get up early, you got to do certain things, then we might think, well, who are you to tell me what I got to do? This is the rascal mind, this typical rebellious mind. But we have to understand the mind is not a friend. It took us places before where we didn't like, which embarrassed us or put us in difficult position. So we have to understand that this Shastra or the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, this is giving us intelligence. We may have lost our intelligence, mat chitta sarvadurgani, mat prasada trishasi, attachet tuam ahankaran, narshoshasi vinakshasi. So Krishna explains in the 18th chapter that mat chitta, if you become conscious of me, sarvadurgani, you will cross over all obstacles of conditional life. So Durga is not just some kind of abstract universal law of karma where there's obstacles there. Durga is actually a personality, and we're speaking about Durga here, Parvati, Uma, or the other name here is Bhavani. But here it's said being cursed by Mother Durga. So Durga means difficulty, just like the word Duratma. Of Mahatma means great soul, and Duratma means not a great soul. It means generally the opposite. Mahatma means broad-minded, generous, and Duratma means miserable, Kripana. And interested, this word Kripana is considered to be like cripple-minded. It's very similar kind of word, Kripana, cripple. Cripple-minded, not generous, not broad-minded, not... So broad-minded doesn't mean to say you can do anything you like and it's okay. I remember I was selling books in Edinburgh once, and a couple of visiting Christians from America were over doing their evangelical thing on the street, and they came over, tried to convert me, and it was a fairly civilized conversation. But they gave me a good piece of advice, which I took, and I thought, well, it doesn't really apply to what you're saying, but I take the advice anyway. They said, don't be so open-minded. that you go to hell. And I thought, that's a good idea. Maybe you should apply that yourself. We can all apply that. So being open-minded, there was a band I used to listen to many years ago, and it was also another good. Sometimes you can learn from anyone. Any source is good. Krishna can speak for you. So he says, "My mind ain't so open that anything can crawl right in. The last place to lose yourself is in this world where we all cling." So we take shelter in this world, and the things we cling to in this world actually let us down. But Krishna, He is the source of this world, and He is providing us the way to live in this world without getting entangled in it. And that path of Bhakti Yoga is it's a simple path. It means practically we don't have to give up much. We simply have to give up the false sense of ownership. I am this body, this is mine, this is my house, this is my car, this is my wife, my husband, my family, etc. But actually, we don't belong to, nothing belongs to us. And we're all part and parcels of Krishna, all the living entities, not just the humans. This is true spiritual life, is that all living entities are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. And all the material ingredients, all the energies are emanating from the Supreme Lord. And if we utilize those in Krishna's service, then that becomes a source of liberation. The example is given that just as you may get a thorn in your foot. I know this is my hand, but I can't point down there. You may get a thorn in your foot, and that may give you so much pain, but you can use another thorn to pull that one out. Sometimes you find that in India, the thorns are so strong that you can use another one, like a needle practically, to pull it out. And they can be like this into the heel. If you're doing Govardhan Parikram, walking around the holy land of Vrindavan, you may get a little purification. And devotees accept that. So this is the mood of the devotee. We don't think, oh, now that I'm a devotee, I shouldn't be suffering. What is this nonsense? I'm still suffering. I'm chanting Hare Krishna every day. Why am I having to suffer? Because we get some token reaction just to remind us we're in this material world and it's not where we belong. So Durga, Machira Sarva Durgani, so over all obstacles of conditional life. So Durga, she's not trying to. Sometimes people paint this picture that the good and the evil forces are at odds with each other in the sense that they sometimes say, "Oh, the devil made me do it." Not me; it was the devil. Take him to court. But no, we have the choice. We used to see this comic when we were children called Ur Wully. It was based on this little guy who'd dungarees and a spiky hairdo. And sometimes he was a good boy, sometimes he was a bad boy. And when he was in a dilemma, there'd be like a little guardian angel on one shoulder saying something to one ear, and then there'd be a little devil on the other shoulder saying something the opposite, and he'd be like, which one shall I listen to? So this is like us as well. We have that choice. And we make the choice, and then the consequences are ours as well. So this is something which, although Krishna is known as Hari, takes away everything. For the devotee, it takes away their suffering and gives them something much better in return. It gives them eternal life, free from suffering. Vaikuntha is the name of the spiritual world. It means free from all anxiety. And for the non-devotees, he takes away everything in the form of death. That they lose everything, they leave everything behind. But for the devotee, what they don't leave behind is if we are unsuccessful in our attempts to become a pure devotee, unalloyed pure devotee, then Krishna gives the chance in the next life to take up from where we left off. We don't lose that because it's not material. Everything material we lose because it's basically a term. It's just like we may have some money in the bank and we buy some things and we take out a mortgage, etc., etc. But when the time comes when our resources have run out, then there'll be repossession, there'll be eviction, things like that. So this is what happened. Time of death, our time is up, our karma is spent, and it's time to move on. And we can't just squat and say, "I protest." No, yeah, but I don't want to go. We have to go, and it's not something. It's not a pleasant thing to look forward to. But because we know that, then we have the opportunity to prepare for that. So the Krishna conscious movement is not some kind of group of people who are fixated on some kind of morbid obsession with death, but actually we're trying to wake up to the reality, and it's not easy because, like everybody else, we just want to enjoy. But Prabhupada said that is the nature of the living entity to enjoy, but we don't know how to do that. In our attempt to enjoy, we end up creating some bad karma where we end up suffering. So we have to know what is going to be conducive for our enjoyment and what is going to be detrimental for that. And then once we know that, that's very clearly explained in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, then we have to have the courage to take the steps to do the right thing. It's like I remember when I read Bhagavad Gita and then I realized now that my eyes have been opened, I can't shut them again. I can pretend to go back to sleep. I'm only going to regret it at the end of this life, thinking, oh, why didn't I just become a devotee? I knew I should have done it. Your life seems long when it's ahead of you, but when it's behind you, you think, oh, I realised that I'm sure I get to the end, I'll look back and think, oh, that was so quick. I had a bit of a near-death experience where I had realised that it wasn't the first time I'd came to this threshold of leaving the body. and at that point, I thought, I don't want to waste another human form of life. I probably have, but at least we're trying to waste it a bit less. But the point is, we have a choice, and at any stage we can turn to Krishna. And Krishna, there's so many examples there of people who, even Ajamio, who started off life as a devotee, nice Brahmin boy, followed everything nicely. He got distracted, led a very degraded life for many, many years, and then on his deathbed, he remembered his son's name, Narayan, who was also thought to be Krishna's name, Narayan. And because he called out Narayan, even though it wasn't calling out for Krishna, Krishna is so kind that he actually came. He, as his servants, the Vishnu Dutas, came and delivered them. So Krishna is giving us these examples to show that it's never too late, but don't at the same time risk it for a biscuit. Don't risk it for the last moment. I'll do nothing. I'll just do nonsense all life. And then at the end, I'll just say Hare Krishna. That kind of plan, we can't control. There's people who have lived in Sri Vrindavan Dham, the land of Krishna, born there, lived there, and just because they live in Vrindavan, they know it's Krishna's place, and they know that basically they're assured of going back to Godhead, but sometimes they become demoniac. They get involved in some demoniac behavior. And there was one guy, interestingly enough, his name was Killen, K-I-L-N, and I think he did a bit of that himself, actually. But he was thinking because he was a Brijbasi, a resident of the Holy Dham, that his destination was assured. So what happened was some other nefarious gangsters got a hold of him and shot him. And he wasn't too worried, thinking that he would just die in Vrindavan. But some complications arose, and they put him in an ambulance and took him to Delhi, and he died in the car park in the hospital. And that became well known throughout Vrindavan. It was almost like Krishna warning everybody, don't think you can just come to my holy dham and force your way in. So it's like they say, you can't buy a ticket to Vrindavan. You could buy a ticket and get there, but will you actually be in Vrindavan? And the same as being a devotee, it's not just a change of clothes or a change of hair or change of makeup, but actually it's a change of heart. And that change of heart means that instead of doing it all for myself, in this material world to varying degrees. We're absorbed in serving ourselves, even though some may be very philanthropic in their activities. Um, they may be generous in many ways, and they may not even want recognition for what they do, but still, um, without understanding who is the supreme proprietor, Shishikontema Pishashiki, Bhoktaram Jagatapasam, Sarvalok Maheshwaram, Suridam, Sarvabhutanam, Gyatvam Mam Shantam Richati. So Bhoktaram Jagatapasam, that Krishna is enjoyer of all sacrifices. So Bhokta, just like this word Bhoga, food which is offered to Krishna is called prasad, but food which is eaten for sense enjoyment is called Bhoga. So devotees are careful to only offer food to Krishna before they eat it, and then they take Krishna prasad. So therefore, there's no karmic reaction. So Krishna is Bhoktaram Yagatapasam, the enjoyer of all sacrifices. So even people who worship demigods, etc., then ultimately Krishna is the beneficiary of those. So if we just go directly to Krishna, then Krishna will give us the result rather than going through some other demigod, etc. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. So of all the lokas, Sarva, all, then the planets, then he is the Maha Ishvara, Maheshwara, the supreme controller. So we all have a little bit of ability and tendency to control. And some of us want to do that more than others. And sometimes people notice that, right? If someone's a control freak, they want to micromanage everything and everybody. And, at times we may have a bit of that in ourselves. But, really, if we look at it, how much control do we have? When we get a common cold, we can't say, I refuse to accept this cold. Sometimes you read books about positive thinking, they say, just you decide. Yeah, you can decide, but it doesn't stop your nose running. It's not necessarily a fact. I remember there was one boy had some financial difficulties and he bought a book and it read about basically how to think yourself rich. And so this was his financial plan, that he would just think about money and it would just come. And I said, the only person who made any money out of that was the guy who sold you the book. So if it's your karma, it will come. Of course, you have to work. You can't just sit in your house and not bother opening the door. In that case, you see, if it's your karma to eat, then food will appear before you. If it's karma to go to the toilet, then it will just happen. So we have to be practical. Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that one cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. And this age we're living in is called Kali Yuga. So there are certainly a lot more durgas or difficulties in Kali Yuga because we're also blessed with the quality of laziness. It's described as Kali Yuga as lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above always disturbed. What do you mean always disturbed? Who are you saying is disturbed? Who are you calling a hypocrite? You're a hypocrite. So it's it's natural in this world that there's some difficulty, that there's animosity, envy, and lazy. Sometimes we have to do something. Think, well, why not that person? What's the matter what they're doing? It's nothing to do with them. Our service is our service. If someone else is doing or not doing, then that's their situation. So yeah, much Salvador. So you can cross over all the obstacles of conditional life by Matprasadat Tarishyasi, by my grace, Krishna says, Ata chet tvam ahankaran, but if through false ego you don't hear me, Nashoshasi, Vinakshasi, then you will be lost. We'll forget our original constitutional position, we'll forget our purpose in life, and then we'll be lost to false ego, which means we fall into the cycle of karmic action and reaction and samsara, the cycle of birth and death. So, Mangalananda, I'm quoting him quite a bit these days, but I have quoted him a lot for many years. He does one nice song where he says, "Through the kingdom of all species, you have risen, spirit soul. Don't turn back now. Hear the sages. It is time to reach the goal." So, hearing from self-realized souls that awakens us to our best um, purpose of this human form of life, awakens us to what is our best benefit. Ke ene emaya jari tapatra iha nahi jani kemani hitahoi. Sanatana Goswami asks Lord Chaitanya, "Who am I? Why am I suffering the threefold miseries, and how can I be benefited?" So the threefold miseries, these are something we can all relate to, whether we're male, female, human, non-human, black, white, this nation, that nation. And threefold miseries are, anybody can name any one of them? Adidivika klesha means natural phenomena. Yeah, so it could be too hot, too cold. This tidal wave which is drowning me is too big. Volcano. And then we have Adi Bhotika klesha means miseries coming from Bhotikas, Bhuta, living entities, other living entities. Sometimes people, they become frustrated or disgusted or disappointed with personal relationships to the point where they just want to become like a hermit. Prabhupada says in the extreme case, this is what impersonalists take to. They want to have no association, and they just want to merge into the oneness of Brahman. And this is born of material frustration. Or even sometimes it can be other living entities, could be a mosquito bite or taxman. So many ways that the other living entities can cause you a problem, or somebody's finding fault with you to the point where it's destroying your self-confidence, or they're becoming your enemy. But we don't have to become their enemy. We can still remain their well-wisher. This is how we can rise above that. If someone is showing some hate towards you, then you can show love towards them. Doesn't mean to say we have to maintain a friendship. It's like a snake may want to bite you, but you don't go and embrace it out of love. You just keep a distance, you respect it. And then the last one, Adi Atmika klesha, coming from our own mind and senses, our own body. And this could be something which is a karmic reaction, but karmic, it's all based on karma, whether it's Adi Daivika, Adi Bodhika, or Adi Atmika klesha. But when we take shelter in Krishna, then these threefold miseries, although they still exist, we see them as simply being the modes interacting with the mind and senses, and we become the observer. Just like Krishna is the observer, he's watching us, he's not implicated. When we align ourselves with Krishna, then we also become the observer, and we simply patiently bear the good and bad reactions passing through until simply all that's left is pure devotional service. So this Vritrasura, or Chitraketu Maharaj, he accepted the curse of Durga, and this is a good lesson. Just as we are also accepting some punishment from Durga, but if we accept it in the spirit of, yeah, I must be due this, or I'm probably due even more, but Krishna is so kind, he's just given me a token reaction. If we can accept it like that, then actually it becomes pleasant. In our own misery, we can also be like satisfied, thinking, well, Krishna's so kind, this is all I'm getting. The things I've done, I should be getting much more. When we're humble, we can think like that, but when we're puffed up, we think, why me? Why it's always me, Go and pick on someone else. Krishna, you're too big, you're just a bully. Why don't you go and pick on someone your own size? No, we can't blame Krishna for what is due us because of us. We were man enough to do the deed, so we have to be able to take the consequence. So Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita then how we can overcome Durga. Although she's insurmountable, even the great demigods and great demons, they cannot surpass the might of Durga. But Daivahisha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mam Evam Ye Prabhajanti Mayam Etam Tarantite. This divine energy of mine, Durga, is very difficult to overcome. And very difficult is an understatement, it's impossible. But it is possible for those who have surrendered unto me, I can easily cross beyond it. So we may have come across Krishna consciousness, and as just going back to what I was saying in the beginning, was that when I read Prabhupada's books, then I was thinking, now that I'm awakened, I can't give it up. And I didn't really want to join the temple. I didn't want to be a devotee, but I felt like I didn't have a choice. And it kind of made sense because some of the things that we were doing were aligning with the practices of devotional service as well. When I came across Bhagavad Gita, then I'd already been in a bit of a search, and I realized all the things which we were cutting out in life, these were the regulative principles which Prabhupada was saying is the conducive for spiritual life. So this is what happens, is that because Maharaj Chitraketu was a great devotee, and the Lord wanted him to come back, then he made some arrangement where, okay, you can take birth as a demon, and then soon we'll arrange some pastime where you can get killed by Indra and then come back to me. So Prabhupada says here in the purport that even if a devotee falls down for some reason, he is still not lost. So Krishna won't forget. But at the same time, we would have to suffer when devotees lived in Bury Place in London before they had Soho Street. They used to live in Bury Place, and Prabhupada was there. And some devotees had left. When Prabhupada came to visit, he seen that some devotees were away, and they said, "Oh, where are these ones?" And they said, "Oh, they left." And they had concocted some philosophy that, well, we can go and do all nonsense because we're a devotee, then we won't have to suffer. Prabhupada says, no, they will have to suffer. But Krishna won't forget the good they've done, but they'll have to suffer for, their nonsense. So that should be there to remind us that don't think, okay, we can just do the Hathi Snan, the elephant taking a bath, and still can be considered clean. And if an elephant takes a lot of trouble to wash itself in the river, and then it comes out, immediately rolls in the dirt, it can't be considered clean. It was only clean for that brief time between getting out the river and rolling on the dirt again. So this example is there to show us, don't just immediately roll in dirt, and if you do, don't consider that you're clean. When we associate with material energy, then we're implicating ourselves there. We shouldn't make some bogus philosophy. Better just to be honest about our situation. But the encouragement is there that don't think that you can't make it because you are making it. We're making steps forward to Krishna. Now, Prabhupada told us we can go back home to Godhead in this life. And I remember at Vivekananda Swami giving a class in Krinabhavan once saying some devotees were doubting that. He says, so you doubting Srila Prabhupada? He says, well, but I'll have a better situation in the next life. He says, what better situation have you got than now? You've got the deities, you've got Prasadam, you've got Chanamrita, you've got the Shastra, you've got the holy name, you've got Kirtan, you've got service, association, what are you going to have next life that you don't have now, except for a bunch of more karma because you just left devotional service and piled it back on, and then you're going to have to clear that away before you get back to where you left off. So better that we just um, grin and bear it at worst. Or but better than that is that we try to understand what we're going through so we can continue to go through it and come out the other end. Every time you think you can't do it, then don't think like that. Because this is the mind trying to tell you you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it, and you just believe it. There's this old guy called Norman Vincent Peale. I don't know if anyone ever came across him, the father of positive thinking. Now he's a bit of a spoff character himself, but he did have some good things. And there was one chapter in one of the books. It says, "Knock the tea off of can't." So instead of telling yourself, "I can't, I can't, I can't," like someone says, "Prabhu, chant." "No, I can't, I can't, I can't." And you say, "Yes, I can, and I can do it." And the Bhagavad Gita is actually the epitome of positive thinking, where Krishna is instructing Arjuna, who is in a very, very difficult position, and he's saying, "You can do it. Go on, do it, and everything will be fine." So he does it, and it was. So, but because we're not the doer of activity, then we shouldn't just think, "I'm the doer, so I can do it," because Maya can break you down. But we can do it by the mercy of Krishna, by the mercy of Guru, by the mercy of the Vaishnavas. On our own, we cannot do it. That will be a fact because Krishna wants us to do our duty, and a major part of that doing our duty is to follow the disciplic succession. We cannot go to Krishna directly and just expect that he's going to instruct us. Krishna speaks through the Vaishnavas, and in this way, Krishna makes things happen for us. He opens the doors for us. So, whatever advancement we make in this lifetime, if for some reason we don't fully qualified to go back to Godhead, we will get a chance where we can take off again, take up from where we left off. And as explained in Bhagavad Gita, without even endeavoring, one will become automatically attracted to principles of yoga. So that would indicate that we've already had some connection, whether it be in knowledge or whether it be agyata sukriti, then there has been some connection. And if not, then the safest thing is to consider that we're simply recipients of the mercy of the devotees. So Vritrasura, although he was known as a demon, then he didn't lose his Krishna consciousness and he didn't lose his awareness of Krishna or devotional service. So although he was in a demoniac family, he actually was in divine consciousness. And for all of us, unless any of you have got like devotee parents, we were all born into families of demons as well. We can relate to this. It might not be something you'd publicise. Go back and tell your mum and dad or your brothers and sisters, you're demons, by the way. You're asuras, and you're lucky that I'm a devotee. Otherwise, your destiny is very dark. We wouldn't be saying such a thing like that. But we know that. We can do these. We're born into a family of Vishayis or sense enjoyers, karmis, and some of the things they're doing are quite demoniac. But most of the people are innocent in the sense that they don't really know what they're doing is wrong. And even trying to tell them it's wrong is so difficult because they're so heavily conditioned. The best thing we can do is to become a good devotee and deliver them, deliver ourselves and deliver them. So sometimes Krishna does this. He'll put a devotee into a family of non-devotees to give them some blessings. Or he'll put a devotee into a family of non-devotees for different reasons. It may be strategic in part of his plan to make the whole world Krishna conscious. Or we simply might just be recipients of the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. We don't know. But in any case, we have an opportunity now. Whether we had it before or not, we have it now. And we can take this opportunity which is there, be an opportunist in Krishna's service. Okay, we'll just stop there. If anyone's got any comments or questions, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the nice class. I'm wondering, in the translation, then it says he became famous as Vritrasura. And I don't know if we read this at the start of the pastime or if I just heard this in a class, that in one of the Puranas, this pastime is also mentioned to kind of summarize the Bhagavatam. It says that the Bhagavatam has been known as the pastime containing the pastime of Vritrasura, the scripture containing the pastime of Vritrasura. I'm wondering what makes this pastime so pertinent with Chitraketu Vritrasura. Why is it so standout?
Well, there's so many pastimes in there, they all stand out. And there's different lessons to learn from them. There's a few lessons, of course, to learn. Is that we should at all costs avoid offending a Vaishnava, because this is what Indra tried to do. He tried to avoid it, but he had to do it. And then sin personified was chasing him. And so there was that. There's also the lesson of offering respect. Chitraketu should have not been so whimsical with Lord Shiva. He should have offered respect. And as Vritrasura, it was shown that even if one is born in a family of demons, they can still be liberated. I mean, so many lessons there. And his fame was already there as Chitraketu Maharaj, because he lived for a very long time. Just imagine he had like some aerial palace which was going here and there and everywhere. So he must have been well known at that time, all over the place. But then he ended up in the pages of Bhagavatam, and so many things make people famous on TikTok, social media, things like that. People are famous for like a flash, 15 seconds, right? 15 minutes it used to be, but it's probably more like 15 seconds now. And they think the world is focusing on them, but soon they'll be forgotten about. And there was one BTG article some years ago, and it showed you, I think it was called the Vedic Observer, and it showed you, I think it was around the time of the Olympic Games. It showed you how these boxes, the first, second, and third place, and somebody just won the gold, silver, and bronze medal, and all the TV crew is there. It's like a cartoon drawing, and everybody's there giving them a big hooray, giving them a big jai. And then within a few seconds, they're off to someone else who's just won something else, and they've forgotten about these guys, and they're standing there on their own. So this is the fame of the material world. You become poisoned by that. Our ego gets fed by it, and then fame can turn to infamy, or we just become unknown after some time. But the fame of the devotee lives on for many, many generations. The fame of the devotee is eternal. Vritrasura is always going to be Vritrasura, that soul who went through the life of Chitraketu Maharaj, who then became Vritrasura and then went back to Godhead. And the thing about devotees, sometimes they may want something, but when it comes to the point where they no longer want it, well, Krishna will sometimes give it to them in such a way which is even much bigger and better than they could have imagined. And they're like, no, but I don't want the fame any longer. That's okay. Now that you don't want it, I can give it to you. Because Krishna doesn't like to give things to his devotees that may hold them back. So sometimes when we're struggling, we can understand it's Krishna's mercy. He's not letting us have something or be seen as something because it's not going to help us. So safest path is keep it simple. Just try to follow strictly. Keep regulated and disciplined and do our duty. And therefore our success will be assured. I don't know if you're looking for anything else in terms of an answer. And we see also with Prahlad Maharaj, he wanted something. He was upset because he was kind of brushed off the lap of the king by his mother's co-wife, Dhruva. Yeah, Dhruva, sorry, yeah, thanks. Yeah, Dhruva Maharaj. And then he wanted something, he wanted a kingdom greater than Lord Brahma. And eventually got Lord Vishnu's darshan to get that benediction, but he realized he didn't want it any longer. He found something which is greater. He was looking for broken glass, but he found a priceless gem. But Krishna even gave him what he wanted materially. He gave him the pole star Dhruvaloka, spiritual planet. And so in this way, Krishna fulfills the material desires so that devotees don't have any need to go anywhere else. And sometimes Lord Nityananda will fulfill the desires of the devotees too, but he won't keep on doing it if we keep petitioning him, and it's going to be a distraction to our Krishna consciousness. Okay, anything else? Alright, let's go and go around the key. Shri Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.
His Grace Prabhupada Prana Prabhu ki jai.